Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Eric May, and on behalf of OTC Markets, as well as our co-host Skyline Corporate Communications, we are very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from Numinus Wellness Inc., a mental health care company providing access to psychedelic-assisted therapies. Please note, you can submit questions to the question box on the left of the slides. You can also view the company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Peyton Nyquist, CEO and founder of Numinus Wellness Inc., which trades on the OTCQX market under the symbol NUMIF and also on the TSX under the symbol NUMI. Welcome, Peyton.
Thanks so much for having me, and good to see everybody, and thank you for joining the presentation. So today I'll just go through a quick overview of where Numinus is today and also where we see the company going in the near future, as well as the industry, which is at a very exciting and sort of catalytic time with the anticipation of MDMA-assisted psychotherapy being available this time next year. The need for a model like ours to be able to facilitate access has become ever more necessary and apparent. So quickly move through the slides. Suggest everybody review the forward-looking statements. So a little bit about Numinus. Numinus is really an integrative mental health care company that at its core focuses on the access to psychedelic assisted therapy. We offer a diverse range of mental health services with psychedelic therapy at its core. And we really look at two ways of advancing psychedelic therapy. One is through growing a service infrastructure to be able to meet the growing societal need for these services. And then two, we do also operate a clinical trial research management organization that has really kind of become the gold standard in the ability to offer psychedelic clinical trials. And we become the clinical trial site for pretty much every major psychedelic clinical study happening at the moment. Few quick things to highlight. Very, very strong balance sheet. With cash on hand to bring us through the anticipated approval of MDMA-assisted psychotherapy. And with that, we've continued to see very strong revenue improvement and margin improvement with that as well. So focusing a little bit on the integrated care model that we've created, as I mentioned, our clinics being able to offer a diverse amount of services from ketamine-assisted therapy, but also talk therapy, virtual psychotherapy, group therapy, medicine management, and TMS, really provides a sustainable platform. And really, we believe that this will be the model that will be necessary going forward for not just ketamine-assisted therapy, but also all other forms of psychedelic therapy as well, where the psychedelic therapy intervention is an important part of the process, but that you do need to make sure that you've got other forms of care, not only to support clients, but also to be able to fill practitioners' time as well, knowing that they can't solely focus on psychedelic therapy as a part of their practice. Shifting over to training, really this is where we see the biggest bottleneck in the psychedelic space is, yes, there's the need for clinics and physical sites, but if you don't have the trained practitioners to be able to offer the therapy, it's very limited. So we've made a number of advancements in regards to training, not just building our own training platform and pipeline, but also recently partnering with MAPS, who is the group who's taking MDMA through clinical trials at the moment, to be able to offer experiential training as a part of this training pathway. And experiential training gives people the opportunity to have an MDMA session as a part of their training. And while we can't mandate that this be a part of training, we do feel like it's something that will be important as we provide scale. And coming out of the Denver conference that MAPS hosted with over 12,000 people there, saw an overwhelming amount of interest for experiential training. Finally, and as I mentioned, our efforts in regards to research, CEDAR Clinical Research is our clinical trial site management organization that is the home for a number of psychedelic clinical trials, including the MAPS work with MDMA, Compass, USONA, MindMed. Really gives us the opportunity to engage with these different protocols and clinical studies in a revenue generating way, but also gives our clinical model a unique opportunity to sort of see around the corner and see what's coming in regards to these different drugs that are being researched for approval, and be able to ideate and innovate our care model based off of what we see in research in real time, so that there's a natural place for those drugs to be able to be distributed through, knowing that all of these clinical trials and all these different psychedelic drugs are being researched in the context of drug plus therapy. And finally, Numinus Bioscience, which is our analytical testing lab and production facility that's been licensed to be able to do importation, exportation, and distribution, as well as production of pretty much all the known psychedelic compounds. Don't need to spend too much time here, as we know, unfortunately, the growing addressable need for mental health services continues to climb, and really highlighted by COVID, where really, regardless of which mental health indication you look at, rates continue to climb, and we've recognized the significant limitations of the current models of care that we have. So to talk just very briefly about the most recent clinical trials, and maybe the one that I'll highlight the most is as we look at MDMA-assisted psychotherapy, which MAPS is the organization who's been bringing MDMA through clinical trials and has now successfully completed 2 phase 3 clinical studies. We've seen the results from the first phase 3 clinical study, which, for people who haven't seen those results, essentially of a population that had treatment-resistant post-traumatic stress disorder. So essentially a population that had to try all accessible forms of therapy and not have them be effective, saw that over 80% of participants saw significant clinical reduction in their symptoms, and 67% actually no longer met the PTSD criteria after just 3 treatments. And those results were taken 12 months after the intervention. So really staggering results, and not like something we'd seen in mental health care. A little bit highlighted here also is the average economic burden of a person who suffers with post-traumatic stress disorder in the United States is almost $20,000 a year. In the United States, there's about 15 million people with diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder at the moment. So not only is this burden a significant one societally, but also financially, it's a massive problem that we don't have a good solution for at the moment. So this is really, as we think about the clinical infrastructure for psychedelic therapy, this is where Numinus has really focused its efforts in creating a necessary bridge between patients and drug developers who are looking to advance products, but then will need an infrastructure to be able to facilitate access to them. And we see this through a number of different arms of the business: a scalable clinical infrastructure, practitioner training, insurance payer expertise, which I'll get into in more detail, familiarity with the drug protocols, and finally, supportive pre and post treatment for patient care. As I mentioned, the results from the MAPS phase 3 clinical studies are really not like nothing we have in the current healthcare system. And Numinus, really since inception, has been created to be able to provide access for things like MDMA-assisted therapy when available. And we're now at that place of really launch time. And now that MAPS has completed their second phase 3 clinical study, they're now moving into rescheduling and regulatory approval of MDMA assisted therapy. And their guidance is that MDMA will be available for treatment by this time next year. So for us, the number of things that we've looked to create, as I mentioned, the experiential training partnership with MAPS, insurance billing expertise, and really this comes from our work in the ketamine space, where we have over 80% of our ketamine therapy gets covered under insurance at the moment, including the off-label use of ketamine. And that's an insurance network that has taken us a number of years to create, and something that we look to leverage with MDMA. And recently you've seen a number of initiatives underway to provide access to insurance support for MDMA assisted therapy, and the American Medical Association approving the first billing code for long form psychedelic therapy. So the pathway is very much there for full insurance reimbursement for MDMA assisted therapy day one. But it does take a significant amount of work to be able to build that infrastructure and create pathways for payers and clients. And that's something that we've already created with ketamine that we'll look to leverage for MDMA assisted therapy. And then finally, expanding our clinic platform through what we call the Numinus network, which is essentially a licensing model that allows for significant scale for MDMA therapy with a much more reduced need in regards to resources to provide scale for Numinus. One of the things that we recognized was really one of the big limitations for someone looking to open up a integrated mental health clinic that is focused on psychedelic therapy is the time and resources associated to be able to build one of those locations are just far more significant than the average owner operator is going to be able to take on. And with this licensing model, essentially what we've created is a turnkey solution for people to get access to all of the operational infrastructure that we've created to be able to stand up a clinic in very short period of time and get operating. And we see this as a very exciting opportunity for us to grow significantly while greatly reducing the amount of resources needed to achieve that kind of scale. So here, just highlighting where our current clinical sites are. This is a combination of owned locations, both in Canada and the United States, as well as recent Numinus network signees. And as I mentioned, coming out of the MAPS Denver conference of over 12,000 people, we've seen a significant increase in interest in the Numinus network model, and we're excited to be able to share more of that in the coming couple of months. So just briefly showing the kind of growth we've continued to see quarter over quarter. The team has continued to demonstrate its ability to execute and grow the organization in a mindful way that creates sustainability. And as I mentioned, now with the launch of the Numinus network, we see another exciting growth opportunity for the company. Some quick updates on the wellness clinic side. As I mentioned, continued improvement quarter over quarter, and really to highlight clinic gross margin of now up to 39%, with 88.5% of total revenues were generated by the wellness clinics. Another number that we really like to highlight is last quarter, almost 20,000 client appointments treated during Q2. So we continue to make a significant impact on people's lives. Numinus has now completed over $15 million worth of insurance covered client reimbursement for ketamine and Spravato to date. As we continue to see growth on the clinic side, I do think it's important to highlight that as we do see that MDMA being a very strong catalyst for revenue growth, but something that we haven't necessarily built into our performance model. So we keep our financial model very much grounded in what we can offer currently, knowing that the the potential upside for MDMA assisted psychotherapy being very significant. Already touched a little bit on research, but just quickly to highlight the capabilities here. Being able to be a contract research organization for all the major stakeholders in the psychedelic space, but also large companies not doing psychedelic work like Merck and others, but really have created, I would say, best in class in regards to psychedelic clinical studies, which being able to implement and execute psychedelic clinical trials is extremely challenging. And we've been able to demonstrate that we are best in class, being the #1 enrollment site for a number of the large psychedelic clinical studies at the moment, and something that we look to continue to leverage in the future. Some quick research updates. We have 16 active clinical trials happening at the moment, 152 trial participants to date, with strong revenue growth, as well as a very strong gross margin that has continued to be a lucrative business for us, as one that strategically supports the company's initiatives around access to psychedelic therapy. So just quickly talking about practitioner training here, very excited to be able to launch our Numinus certification pathway as more and more practitioners are becoming excited about psychedelic therapy. One of the challenges that they currently run into with training is how do they know which training to take and how to deploy resources towards that in time, knowing that there are a number of trainings out there, but how do they make sure that they're credentialed and able to be represented as more and more of these therapies become available? And so we launched that Numinus certification pathway so that practitioners do have something that they can hang behind their name that shows that they've gone through a certified training pathway and are experienced and trustworthy to be able to offer, obviously right now, ketamine-assisted therapy, but soon MDMA and psilocybin. Here, just a little more details on the numbers. Continue very strong revenue growth quarter over quarter. A very small dip between Q1 and Q2, which was really just attributed to seasonality, being the Christmas holidays, and a regular dip that we see that time of year. But very strong continued performance that we attribute really to our integrative care model. Some more details here. I think really to highlight the gross margin is continuing to improve and something that we're extremely proud of as we continue to be fiscally responsible on how we deploy the capital, and since the very beginning, making sure that we're continuing to drive to profitability as quickly as possible. So some catalysts, as I mentioned, for not just Numinus, but the sector. I believe that the sector is at a really, really exciting inflection point. The last number of years have been a consolidation period in the psychedelic space. But now with not only access to ketamine-assisted therapy, and most recently some reported numbers on the Spravato launch, which had previously not been disclosed, but last quarter Spravato did $130 million worth of sales and is one of Janssen's top selling products at the moment. Continue to see really strong adoption for psychedelic therapy, and now at a point where MDMA really coming to launch time. We've seen a successful phase 1. We anticipate the readout of the second phase 3 clinical study in the next 30 to 60 days. And while we don't know exactly what those results are, MAPS has already put out guidance that not only do they reaffirm the first phase 3, but they actually improve upon the second phase 3. So over the next 30 to 60 days, we anticipate the readout of those results, and then MAPS moving through IND submission, FDA rescheduling, DEA rescheduling, and ultimately approval. For Numinus, some of the initiatives we have underway, as I mentioned, launching the Numinus Network Clinic Licensing Program, our new client website launch, and really building strong relationships with the leading groups in the sector, and primarily our focus with MAPS, of which, as I mentioned, the launching of the experiential training opportunity, which we believe is the first of a number of new initiatives that Numinus and MAPS are working together on that we're excited to talk about in the near future. Finally, on the capital market side, continuing to work towards a major US exchange listing, which we anticipate in the fall of this year. So just as I mentioned, the Numinus Network clinic licensing opportunities provides people who are wanting to open a clinic with a turnkey solution, being able to leverage all that Numinus has created that's been effective in regards to mental health care with a focus on psychedelic therapy, including a proven clinical model, comprehensive training, access to Numinus treatment protocols and clinic SOPs, ongoing operational marketing support, as well as financial support and access to that reimbursement infrastructure that will be extremely important. And finally, a trusted brand in the psychedelic space. Quick highlights just of the executive management team, really pulling from a diverse amount of skill sets as we look to draw from clinic expertise, like from Reed Robison, who was the original founder of Cedar Psychiatry, which had been operating in the mental health space for about 13 years and had been working with ketamine since that time. So really a huge amount of expertise, and we've been able to leverage all of our skill sets to be able to grow that expertise and build a model that we believe will be really in the leadership position in providing access to psychedelic therapy, be it MDMA, psilocybin, or other psychedelic compounds. So just finally to wrap, these are some very exciting different initiatives that we look to leverage in the near term. The launching of our Numinus network, which enables really accelerated growth, as I mentioned, with a limited need for resources. Growing our practitioner training programs, which is really the significant bottleneck for psychedelic therapy, in a way that continues to generate revenue for the company while also providing access and informed sites. And finally, our new digital platform is underway to support a capital-light growth initiative and really be the glue that ties together all the Numinus network opportunities. With that, I will hop over to some questions. So first question, you mentioned the experiential training partnership with MAPS. Do you expect your relationship with MAPS will deepen as MDMA-assisted therapy nears approval? Without being able to get into too much, I do think absolutely there's opportunities to continue to collaborate, and Numinus has always aligned itself with MAPS and have had a very close working relationship over the last number of years, and something we're very excited to be able to support the work that MAPS has done. Really the psychedelic industry exists because of the work of MAPS, and for over 37 years, them taking MDMA through clinical trials. They're really the organization that has brought this industry into existence. And we're very, very grateful to be able to work very closely alongside them. And actually at the MAPS Denver conference, was very fortunate to be able to share a stage with my friend and MAPS founder, Rick Doblin, and talk about experiential training. And it was an overwhelmingly attended talk. It was standing room only of a couple thousand people, primarily practitioners, and really exciting to be able to announce this partnership around experiential training, and I think showed the alliance between the two organizations. Next question, would you ever consider expanding overseas, such as Australia, or do you intend to focus your growth plans in North America? Um, Absolutely focused on North America. We're very excited by what's happening in Australia, and with our network, with the Numinus network being launched, there are opportunities for us to go overseas, and we're very excited about the Numinus network's ability to do that. Uh, but our focus on any owned facilities in the near future, we anticipate being focused in the United States, but there's certainly opportunities for the Numinus network to go overseas, and our training program is available worldwide, and we see that as a really exciting opportunity to be able to support new markets that are providing access to psychedelic therapy, especially in the absence of credited and informed training programs, and definitely something that we're excited to be able to support the work that Australia is doing. Next question. Will you continue to offer ketamine and talk therapy after other psychedelic therapies are approved? Absolutely. I think ketamine will always have a place, and talk therapy is really, traditional therapy is really extremely necessary to be able to kind of anchor in these other forms of psychedelic therapy. While the psychedelic therapy intervention is extremely important, the need for preparation and ongoing support is equally, if not even more important. The thing that I usually try and akin it to is, if you think about a knee surgery as an example, if you knew that you were going in for a knee surgery and you decided to not take care of your body and go downhill mountain biking every day going into the knee surgery, and then go in for knee surgery and come out of that knee surgery and continue to not take care of your body and continue to go downhill mountain biking, the potential for that knee surgery to not be effective and for you to need another knee surgery is very high. Whereas if you prepare your body very well, take care of yourself, do the necessary preparation work going into that surgery, do the surgery, and then coming out of it, do the appropriate amount of rehabilitation and self-care, the potential for that knee surgery to be effective are very, very high. Psychedelic therapy is exactly the same. This is an intervention-based model that needs a significant amount of preparation and ongoing care to ensure the highest possible outcome for the psychedelic therapy intervention. So we'll always continue to stay rooted and anchored in that. Next question. Will there need to be any state level approval for MDMA assisted therapy once the FDA approval is granted? This is a great question. So the way that it works with rescheduling is, because this is a federal change, not a state by state change, what ends up happening is once the FDA approval is there and the DEA rescheduling happens, half of the states automatically shift to legal model. The other half of the states has the choice whether they want to or whether they want to implement any extra guidance or extra regulation around psychedelic therapy. But our anticipation is most likely that the majority of states will just immediately go with the status quo. And so far, you've seen nothing but very strong regulatory support for psychedelic therapy in general from really both sides of the aisle. And I think actually that was very much highlighted at the MAPS conference, where Rick was joined in his opening address by Rick Perry, who's the governor of Texas, as well as the governor of Colorado, and really showing strong support from both sides of the aisle. We have 1 minute, so I'll hop to one more quick question. How is the Numinus network ramping? Are you seeing much interest? Really, the interest is far greater than even we can handle at the moment. We've seen an overwhelming amount of positivity for the Numinus network and interest in it, and really, really highlighted by the MAPS conference. And so we're really excited about that opportunity, and you'll see a lot more in regards to that over the coming couple of months and year ahead, as we look to provide enough scale and access for MDMA assisted therapy. And I think that's all we've got for time. So thank you so much. For anybody who's been listening to this, we do have our Q2 call next week. So if you're looking for more information, feel free to tune into that.